and Dwayne Wade right at the body of Anderson Varejao. Welcome to your Kodak moment, Anderson Varejao. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
And I'd like to welcome you all back to the BSPN radio show. This is actually the first solo show I'm doing, but considering how long ago the draft was and how difficult it's been to schedule a show with anyone, I thought I'd just go through all the assorted picks and give my thoughts. I have watched an absurd amount of film on all of them, on all of the players in the top 15, but most of the players that went in the first round, and a good amount of the players that went in the second round as well. And this is a really interesting class because what it lacks in superstar talent, it really has in terms of deepness. Like, I think there are a good 40 potential high impact players. Maybe not high impact in that they'll be stars or starters, but high impact in that we'll look back on this draft class and there will be a good amount of players that have come out of it that are on a team somewhere and have had long careers. So, of course, we got to start first overall with Zion Williamson, the heralded child of ESPN. I mean, this pick was obvious from the day the lottery happened. He's a excellent player. The only question with him is really his jump shot and his body, whether he can stay healthy and whether that type of body will work in the NBA. But as far as defense, fast break offense, facilitating as a forward, it's his athleticism is of course insane. He's going to be fun to watch for a now rebuilding Pelican squad that could make some legitimate noise in the Western Conference, which is crazy to say considering how difficult it is to succeed in the West. But I'm really excited to see what Zion does. I've of course not been his greatest supporter, but I certainly think that Zion can be either the next star that we're depending on for the next 15 years of great basketball, or he could be a Marvin Williams player, where he comes in, he's supposed to be the next great thing, and has all this crazy athleticism, but never really figures out the offensive side of the NBA. You know, can't shoot the greatest, develops it later in his career, but isn't really that sought after player like we all think he can be. But he's an anomaly. He's really bang or bust for me. I don't think he can have a middling career. I think it's going to come down. I love him in Alvin Gentry's system of defense and running. It's it's going to be a fun watch. I can assure you that. I can't assure much else when it comes to Zion. I can assure it'll be a fun watch, and that Pelican squad is going to be horrifying to go against defensively. I mean, they have playmakers at all five positions defensively. Lonzo Ball, I am not a great supporter of him. I think he's a starting level point guard at best. But what I can say is that his defense is potentially all NBA defensive level. And that type of impact he could have passing to players like Zion Williamson and also the new draftee, Jackson Hayes, who really raw prospect but can jump out of the fucking gym. It's crazy. Then they have Brandon Ingram, who LeBron's camp. My apologies. LeBron's camp actually compared to Scottie Pippen before this past season, and it's gonna be a great season, guys. Even if we have a very simple free agency class, like I think we could, with everyone staying where they are essentially, or Kevin Durant being the only player that makes a big move and him being out of all the next season, it's gonna be really interesting because there's even if not that much change happens, the amount of potential for change that we have right now is what's keeping everyone going. And with how simple and kind of non-changing the league has been for a while, with the Warriors are going to win the finals this year and next year and all of that. It's really great to see that we're going to have a lot of change, and it's going to be interesting change, and not just like, okay, Paul George is with the Thunder now. Let's see what happens there. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch, and it's going to be fun to see all the jersey swaps that happen through free agency. But let's move on to the second overall pick, where Memphis took sophomore guard out of Murray State, a Murray State racer, had no D1 scholarship offers, Ja Morant. I mean, first of all, you gotta love the story. Second of all, I love that Jaren Jackson was at the draft. I was actually personally at the draft watching these picks happen. I love that Jaren Jackson was interviewing Ja maybe 5 seconds after he came off the stage, and they were just talking about what they were going to try to do together. It was beautiful to see. I'm excited for that. Additionally, I think Memphis got a huge steal in Brandon Clark at 21 or 23. And it's going to be awesome to see how they work Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson together, but I can talk about that more later. Let's talk about Ja and how he's going to affect the Grizzlies, because I think he's going to be huge for them. I think Ja Morant is the opposite of what the grit and grind Grizzlies were, but the way he can improve a shot chart for a team immediately is absurd. Like, I have a source that would tell me that the Knicks would have jumped at him at 3 if he had fallen that far. But and that they had him as the number 2 prospect behind Zion, as most teams did. But his passing ability is what makes him special. Last year, it was Trae Young's shooting that really overshadowed his passing. This year, it's Ja Morant's athleticism that's overpowering his passing. His passing is going to be elite day one in the league, and I think I'm more excited for Ja Morant than I am for Zion Williamson. Just because I'm not sure what Zion is going to be, but Ja Morant, I am absolutely sure that he's going to run that show. And I loved watching Jaren Jackson last year because although Memphis was a boring team to watch, the way he shoots as a power forward is pure. Like, as much as I love Karl Anthony Towns, his shot is a set shot essentially, but Jaren Jackson Jr., Triple J, pulls it like no other, and it's beautiful to watch just to watch a big man shoot like that, because most big men don't have that pure release. Jaren Jackson is super impactful, and he's what every team wants, and I'm just excited to see that team be built up, especially because it means the Celtics aren't going to get as much out of that Grizzlies pick that everyone thought was going to be great. I mean, I love where the league is trending with these picks. Like, Memphis is going to be a fun team to watch, which is the first time anyone has said that ever. Like, they've never had this kind of fun and gun. But I'm worried with what they're going to do at small forward. I don't think they really have a plan there. They have Dylan Brooks at the 2, which is, of course, going to be great. He fits next to Ja Morant perfectly. Ja Morant, another big question of his is his shooting. And whether his frame can hold up with the 82-game season. But his shooting is especially confusing. I know his free throws have been great. I know that he shot pretty well from 3. I think it's 36% at Murray State in his second year. His first year was something like 30.3%. I know he's improved a lot. I worry that the form isn't great. He kind of his shot pocket is a bit in front of his face, which isn't a great sign. Also, it's like the Russell Westbrook problem. You don't want that kind of player to shoot as like a first option. You want him with the ball in his hand. And I don't want Ja Morant to get too into the idea of, I can shoot off the dribble instead of going downhill and getting his teammates open, because he has teammates that can make shots and make plays. Brandon Clark is the only offensive, essentially a 0 on that team now. I don't know what they're going to do with small forward. I don't know if DeLon Wright is going to be back from, like, how much he's going to play now. I don't know. I mean, I assume Jonas Valanciunas is going to be brought back as the starting center's job. The Grizzlies are a team I'm excited for, although they do need to nail the next few picks. Like, next year's pick, they need to find a high-level small forward, which is going to be a struggle because it's a point guard-heavy class. But they really got the best point guard in this class, and they got someone who's going to be offensively excellent. And then, as for defensive playmakers, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark together, defensively, you're not scoring inside on that. That's awesome. But let's move on to the new New York prodigal son, RJ Barrett, the Maple Mamba. I'm I've been a big supporter of RJ all year. I was one of the people that said he should be the first overall pick, maybe until halfway through the college season, until just before March Madness. Honestly, I'm a big fan of his. You can see what he's trying to chase. He's trying to be James Harden. The Bleacher Report draft comparison was DeMar DeRozan, which I don't agree with. I mean, I think he has much more willingness to both shoot the three and pass than DeMar DeRozan has. Um, but I mean, he is a slash first player instead of a shoot first player. So maybe a little less James Harden. It's he's a fun. I'm excited for him. He's one of the few people we've seen say, "I want to go here, and I'm only going to work out here," and all of that in a very long time. And it's exciting to see that. It's exciting to see someone be excited to play for New York, which hasn't been the case for a while. I mean, you look up and down that roster. Dennis Smith Jr. at starting point guard. They got Alonzo Trier off the bench. I am a huge fan of Kadeem Allen. He's really what everyone wants in a backup point guard, and they're getting him for $800,000 yearly. That's nothing. That's a great deal, especially if they can become playoff contenders in 2 years if they do manage to sign Kevin Durant, and he is at least 80% of what he is now. It's the Knicks have someone to be excited for now. Kevin Knox is not great, let's be honest. I was a big fan of his. He's not that great. Frank Ntilikina is potentially the worst player in the entire league. Dennis Smith Jr. has his problems with both shooting the ball and being a bit of a ball hog. I'd say there's only two players on that squad that I'm very excited for, being Damian Dotson and Mitchell Robinson. I think Mitchell Robinson has real defensive player of the year potential, and pairing him with Anthony Davis would have been the best defensive front court I have ever seen, or ever heard of, or has ever happened in the NBA. That obviously won't happen with Anthony Davis going to the Lakers, but I think Mitchell Robinson has a distinct chance to be a great anchor of a defense. I really thought the Celtics should have taken him in last year's draft, but let's not go into that. The Knicks really have a three-piece combo, let's say now, in their rebuild, being RJ Barrett, Damian Dotson, Mitchell Robinson. I think you can include Kevin Knox. He's going to do much better as a second or third option on the team than he did as a first option. But honestly, the stats do not lead towards it. He was kind of horrible. And that, I mean, if you're the worst team in the league, it makes sense that your players aren't going to look great. But it's tough to look forward and see a path for Kevin Knox being the excellent player he was supposed to be. He loves those floaters way too much. I feel like that's the biggest problem with his game. Then it's hard to talk about the Knicks because it really all depends on what's going to happen with free agency. We at BSPN are obviously going to have a show that starts on the 30th, and we're going to try to make it a 24-hour live show to try and, have everything, talk about everything as it's going on. And hopefully some of y'all will tune into it. We'll be streaming it on the YouTube, but let's move on to the fourth pick, where the Hawks traded up with the Pelicans, who had the Lakers' fourth overall pick, to get DeAndre Hunter. I am not a big fan of DeAndre Hunter. I feel like his ceiling is not very high. He may be a sure bet to be a decent defender and potentially be a decent three-point shooter, but that's about it. You drafted the next Robert Covington at fourth overall. I think there was no reason for the Hawks to move up. I think DeAndre Hunter would have absolutely been there at number 8. I don't see who else would have taken him. I mean, at 7, the Bulls were not going to take anyone but Kobe White. At 6, the Suns, if they had stayed there, would not have taken DeAndre Hunter. The T-Wolves would not have taken DeAndre Hunter. They had no reason to go after someone like DeAndre Hunter. At 5, I mean, I think the Cavs were high on DeAndre Hunter, but I think they were at the point where they really valued Garland highly. However, if the T-Wolves did manage to vault the Cavs and take Garland at 4, it seems like that would have probably meant that Hunter would have gone to the Cavs. But I think those are the only two teams you had to worry about, and I think it's a really questionable choice for me. I mean, I'm excited for the Hawks moving forward. This is the first step in adding a winning culture. Of course, DeAndre Hunter being a part of that Virginia team that just won, the UVA team that just won March Madness and won the NCAA tournament. It all just feels kind of strange to me why you would trade up for a player that I'm not really sure can coexist with John Collins. I see DeAndre Hunter more as a 4, which means that John Collins would play the 5. I don't know if he can do that full time, although the pickup of, his name will come back to me at some point. Bruno Fernando is going to be interesting if Bruno Fernando cannot be a post player and can be what they need him to be as a run and jump center, a Clint Capella type, someone who can help anchor the defense with John Collins, who can be a big body that can take away the opposing team's big bodies so that John Collins can actually devote himself to the offensive side of the ball. I don't like the pick, man. I mean, DeAndre Hunter, say what you will about him. I mean, he's going to be something. I can assure you that he is the safe pick that the Hawks took. They took a flyer on Cam Reddish later at 10. He is the safer pick. And I can assure you he'll be something. He'll be a 3-and-D guy. I cannot tell you he will be a star. I think he can be a star insofar as Harrison Barnes is a star. And people forget that Harrison Barnes was great for the Warriors, but he was like the 3rd or 4th option. And he was never really that guy. And I mean, he can be the 3rd or 4th option on a really great team, but at this point, I'm not sure who the Hawks think their number 2 option is going to be. I think they took Cam Reddish in hopes that he could be that, but I'm not sure that'll work out. I was really low on Cam Reddish. I mean, I thought he would go to the Hawks just because the fit made so much sense, but I really don't see how Cam Reddish could manage to be that much of an impact. And if he works out, he'll be their number 2 option, sure. But do you think Kevin Huerter can be your number 2 option offensively? I mean, I don't. I think he's a great shooter, right? He's that off-ball player that any team would kill to have, but he's not that number 2 option in the way that Klay Thompson was for the Warriors, because let's be honest, the Hawks are really just trying to be the new Warriors. I'm a big fan of the Hawks. I question this move. I mean, I think you could have stayed at 8. There's the option of getting Jarrett Culver there. I think Culver pairing with that team would have been great. He can do the little things. He is, and you wouldn't have to have moved up. I think could have gotten serious value at 17. All of those are options. I'm not a fan of this. This is the first pick that was questionable for me. At 5, it gets worse with the Cavs taking Garland. If you were paying attention to the BSPN Insta at that time, I was very happy that the Wolves traded up to 6 to take Garland, and it didn't happen, and I was sad, and there's not much else to say about that. But Garland next to Sexton is a not good fit. They have 2 6'2" point guards now. The news is that a lot of people in the Cavs organization think that Garland could be, the starter, and then Colin Sexton is better suited for a 6-man role. But if that's the case, why would you have Jordan Clarkson on the roster when he did excellently at being a 6th man? Because that's, a player that has a high offensive ceiling and isn't too great on defense is usually best fitted for a 6th-man role, unless they are truly elite at offense. But it's questionable. The biggest thing that Garland has in his repertoire is being able to shoot, but his playmaking is sketchy. I mean, obviously the injury problems coming out of Vanderbilt, where he only was able to play 5 games. I don't like the pairing of Sexton with Garland, because I think that if you're taking Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum as the prototype for it, there's a big difference there in that both Dame and CJ are willing to play off ball and willing to pass the ball. Garland showed that he was he would work off ball, but he really was more in his element and was happier playing the sport of basketball while he had the ball in his hand. And Sexton was so much so the same thing, that he desperately wanted the ball in his hand. And if he didn't have the ball in his hand, he would just kind of stay out at the wing in the corner and just shoot a three ball. His three ball shooting was way better than expected, but the defensive cap on this group is really low, really unexciting. I mean, do you look to trade one of them in the future? Probably. Other than that, what is there to do? I don't know. I mean, what other young players do you have on this roster? Chetty Osman as your small forward, but is he going to change anything really? I liked Jarrett Culver to the Cavs. I thought you have your offensive guard with Colin Sexton. He can be your primary ball handler. I'm questioning whether Jarrett Culver can be your primary ball handler, but he can certainly be your secondary ball handler. He can take the best wing or guard and guard them the entire game. All of that works well. He covers up Colin Sexton's defensive struggles. It's just, I don't like Garland and Sexton. I guess you look, hey, we're going to go highest talent here instead of going by fit. They did the same thing with Dion Waiters, I think. Dion Waiters and Kyrie Irving. And that worked out horribly because neither of them wanted to play off ball. I think this could be a distinctly similar situation. I'm going to leave the Cavs short just because I don't know what the Cavs are doing. They're going to be in the same place next year. They're going to try to trade Kevin Love. They should try to trade Kevin Love, although they might not. And I think there are certainly teams that could give up some value for him. Portland has a hell of a lot of expiring contracts, even after trading Evan Turner for Kent Bazemore. And if they can get Zach Collins thrown onto that, I think they should take that deal in a second. Yeah, Cavs are interesting, man. But let's move on to 6, where the T-Wolves selected after trading with the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns, of course, got the 11th overall pick, got Dario Saric, and the Timberwolves got the number 6 overall pick, presumably to take Darius Garland. Of course, I loved Garland, although I do not like his fit with the Cavs. He would have been perfect in Minnesota. I, of course, am a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, so I'm going to support Jarrett Culver like no one else can. And here's my thing about Culver. I think he can be very good. He can create his own shot off the dribble from the perimeter, which is something that we haven't had at the guard position in a while now. You can support Derrick Rose and all that. I'm a huge D Rose fan. I do not want him back on this team if he requires something like $12 million annually. I like the news that I think we are the front runners to get D'Angelo Russell. It's a very real possibility. We are the leading odds team to sign him. I think Jeff Teague can be offloaded easily to a team like the Magic, who needs guard play and has cap space that they probably aren't going to fill. I think Georgie Deng could be traded somewhere. It takes some assets, but it's possible. I think there's a real possibility that Andrew Wiggins gets traded. He seems like the odd man out, although I think he's going to have a big year. Jarrett Culver can fit pretty well on any team, I think. Because I think him, Robert Covington, and Josh Okogie together defensively is going to be scary to go against. Like, real scary to go against. Of course, the trade brought up a problem that the T-Wolves don't really have a power forward moving forward. They have Taj Gibson, who's going into free agency, who they might re-sign for a small amount of money. I gave the idea that they should go after Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, switchable defender. The shot is still a work in progress. He feels like one of those undervalued commodities that we might be able to scoop up for something like $3 million annually. I don't think many teams are going to go after him, and I'd be excited to get him, especially if we get D'Lo to just bring that Nets energy to Minnesota. And I think his pairing next to Karl Anthony Towns would be great, but that's not what this is about. This is about Jarrett Culver and the 6th overall pick. I mean, I'm excited about this. We gave up nothing in that trade. Dario Saric was best suited to be coming off the bench. He was also not doing great with us. Um, and honestly, in a draft like this, getting a player like Jarrett Culver who would not have been there for us at 11, I will say that 100% would not have been there at 11. Getting him for how little we gave up is going to be great value. And we're trying to be a defensive first team around Karl Anthony Towns. Something else I outlined a while ago. Just you need 3-and-D players around Karl Anthony Towns, and you can be a top 5 offense. That's how I see it. It's gonna all come down to, okay, since centers are undervalued at this point, what guard play can you get to somehow create your own shot in late game situations or to take pressure off Karl Anthony Towns? And I think where Jarrett Culver lacks in his ball handling skills, in his facilitating skills, and honestly in his shooting, his shooting is fine. It's just the release is a little slow. I feel like that's the biggest problem. Um, it's it's good. It's good because as far as facilitating goes, pass to the open guy, the amount of gravity Karl Anthony Towns has. He finished last year's off by averaging something like 35, 36 points a game. He was doing crazy things with the basketball. Like he had that whole team on his back single-handedly. He's going to do a lot. He's going to be a workhorse for them, but Jarrett Culver is going to bring a lot of intensity, hopefully going to be a great leader. Could potentially get Andrew Wiggins back going because, I mean, this is Andrew Wiggins' replacement. Like, sure, they can play together, but if Andrew Wiggins is not going to be anything special or is not going to prove that he should be a part of this team's future, he could be traded and then it'd be Jarrett Culver taking that starting shooting guard spot. And the T-Wolves didn't address point guard or power forward in this draft. I feel like they're going to use those are going to be what they go after in free agency. I think they have a really distinct path moving forward, which is, okay, get a primary ball handler, try to get some vets that can help you win now, don't overpay for any, and then probably don't attach any major draft picks to any trade unless I think the Cavs could potentially take Gorgie Dang and two or three second-round picks for J.R. Smith if he's not waived beforehand. And that would mean that we'd have the cap space to go after D'Angelo Russell. That's what needs to happen. Moving on, 7, Kobe White. Been mocking this to the Bulls all year. It just makes sense. Even when the Bulls were projected to have the 4th overall pick, Kobe White fits with their system so much. I mean, you can read what I said about him before. He may not have the greatest measurements as far as height and wingspan, especially because usually in measuring, let's be honest, the hair adds about an inch or two, even when they measure it, because even if you flatten down hair, there's still going to be some resistance there. And just measuring him is going to be hard. 6'3"-ish, 6'2" to 6'4" is what I'd say, with a 6'5" wingspan, is a Patty Mills type player. I think he's going to be big in terms of leadership. His defense may not be the greatest, but his off-ball shot making is great. His facilitating is great. It's just a perfect fit. I don't know what else to say. I'm leaving the Bulls really short because it makes sense. And I've written and talked about this before. I love this pick. It makes sense. The Bulls have potentially already finished their rebuild. I'm questioning the defensive potential of Kobe White and Zach LaVine together. Both aren't great there, and I mean, there's not much support with Lauri Markkanen also not being great defensively, so you're essentially, depending on Wendell Carter and Otto Porter to be huge there, and I don't think that can really happen. Chris Dunn could still start day one, or they could go in free agency for a point guard, and Kobe White and Chris Dunn are both bench players. It'll be fun to see. I think this team is certainly one that could have a big rise this year. I think they could be a 5 or 6 seed in the playoffs. Depends on what happens to the Pacers without Oladipo. I mean, the more I talk about it, the more excited I am for this team. And I really wish them the best. Oh, excuse me. I wish them the best with, my old team's players. Well, my team's players. Jesus Christ. Let me try to say that correctly. My team's old players on that team trying to make a big impact, and I wish them the best. Number 8 was a part of the Hawks trade to get DeAndre Hunter. The Pelicans held it and took Jackson Hayes. Really, the only major center. I mean, eventually, once we saw that Bol was not really wanted by many teams, Jackson Hayes was the only real lottery potential center we could see. And I mean, he's a project player. That's the biggest problem with him. He's not going to be that immediate impact player, it doesn't seem. But his fit with Zion defensively is great. Offensively, questionable. I mean, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of lobs, but there's not a lot of shooting on that team, and that's going to be very confusing and hard to deal with when the only respectable shooter on a team is a 2-guard who can only shoot like 36% at best, which is just above league average. I mean, that's the biggest question with the Pelicans, right? It's, can they find shooters? And they have a lot of cap space. They could either get a veteran center. I've heard a lot of news that they're going after Marc Gasol if he opts out. That they could potentially be interested in someone like an Al Horford. I think Al Horford to the Pelicans is a super clean fit, and I'd love it. It's fun to watch. Although I'm not sure Al Horford would be willing to take a backseat to a rebuild after he's done so with the Celtics for a while now. I'm excited to see what the Pelicans can do with this squad. I spoke about it a lot earlier, so I'll keep it short here as well. Jackson Hayes is a project player. He can certainly help. So he's going to take the big body so that Zion can be a roaming defender. Something like what Omer Asik did for Anthony Davis with the Pelicans before. I hope he can be fed the ball correctly. He's not that type of post-up player. He might actually get played off the court sometimes. If there's a shooting big man, he's gonna have struggles. He wants to stay in the paint, and that's the biggest problem with him. I'm excited to see what the Pelicans can do, because they're going to need a very good level of coaching. They're going to need a coach that can actually make sure to maximize the talent on this roster. It's a very talented roster, but all of this like blue chip talent have distinct flaws, and most of those flaws for all of them are shooting. And in this day and age, it's really hard to be a great team without a good amount of floor spacing. And I hope it works out for them. I'm excited to see this team. I am a notable Lakers hater, and I'd love to see those Lakers talents, really pay off. I can't say I'm questioning the pick, because this is the only pick that really made sense for them there. But like, I don't know if there's. I feel bad that they had to take a center here. I mean, it was their only real position of need. It's confusing to me. I mean, centers, man. If they can't shoot the 3, they're not going to be super valuable. That's the same reason we see Clint Capella on the market now. A player like Willie Cauley-Stein is probably not going to get paid. Just centers that can't shoot the 3 ball aren't as valuable. And that's sad, but I feel like there weren't any other options other than Jackson Hayes at number 8. At number 9, I think the second worst overreach in the entire draft, with the Wizards taking Rui Hachimura. I had a post that I put out maybe like a half a day before the draft that said that Rui Hachimura is a tall Dion Waiters, and I stand by that. He is an offensive player nearly exclusively, has no defensive instincts. He has the body for the NBA, I'd say, but he doesn't think like an NBA player. He's quite selfish when he has the ball in his hands, cannot facilitate for anything. I hate Rui Hachimura as a player, and I love the story that it's the first Japanese-born player or a Japanese-American player to be drafted in the lottery. It's a great story. Yes, not a great player. A lot of mock drafts had him going mid-20s, early 20s, maybe late teens, which probably made sense for him. He kind of needs to learn off a bench role. If you think he can be a leader, I don't really. That may be the reason why the Wizards took him. The Wizards are trash heap, honestly. Ernie Grunfeld screwed up that team for so long, and now they have probably the worst contract in the entire league in John Wall. They have a young star in Bradley Beal that probably should not still be there. And then other than that, they have a whole bunch of blah. Excuse me. Do you think Bobby Portis can be a starting power forward? If so, why would you take Rui Hachimura? Jabari Parker is rumored to be probably coming back. Both sides have interest in a deal there. I think Thomas Bryant is one of the most underrated centers in the league. He's a bit of young talent, but I don't think Rui Hachimura is going to be a win-now player. And if you're going to be drafting that player at number 9 overall over a Cam Reddish with your wing depth completely deprived now, with Otto Porter being gone, Kelly Oubre being gone, Trevor Ariza being old, you don't have much to work with there. And why would you go with a questionable talent at number 9? I think Cam Reddish would have been a better pick there, and I am a notable hater of Cam Reddish. Cam Reddish would have been better there. I mean, Brandon Clark is the better player of the Gonzaga big men. So that's a big question. Like, why would you... I understand that Brandon Clark is way older, but Rui Hachimura is still not a great player. I'll leave it at that. I think Rui Hachimura was a huge overdraft. At number 10, you have Cam Reddish, very questionable college career, but was supposed to be a top 5 pick coming out of high school. Smooth scorer, cannot really do that off-ball role, can create his own shot. I think he has the perfect fit with the Hawks. I mean, Trae Young's playmaking is going to be huge in his development. As I said, I'm really excited for the Hawks' young core moving forward. I think the only thing that really worries me is how are they going to have a center and who's going to play 4. I mean, Cam Reddish, can he play the small ball 4 in a very similar role that Jay Crowder had with the Jazz this past year? Just because I feel like that body type and play style is very similar. He's going to need to get better at shooting the 3 off ball and be more willing to play off ball. We saw that with Duke. He wasn't really happy playing off R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson, even though that was what he was supposed to do. He needs to get better at shooting the 3 ball. That's the biggest thing. I mean, he's a score-first player, so I'm not going to ask him to get better at facilitating, although that would help his game if they can start moving the ball a lot and have all these high IQ players that can really facilitate the ball. But, I mean, that's not what Cam Reddish's game plan is. That's not what it's ever been. So, asking him to do so is a bit much, in my opinion. He needs to get better at shooting. His handle needs to be cleared up. He feels like a huge tease in the pre-draft workouts. It's going to be important to see what he can do with the Hawks. And I think you can look at the great coaching, the great potential coaching that they have, and that they've been able to maximize players. But the Hawks are going to be a great team to watch. They're going to be fun to watch. I'm not sure whether they're going to be in the playoff race, but it's really going to come down to, okay, how much can Trae Young take another jump? Can John Collins really devote that much energy to defense and still be the same offensive player? Can DeAndre Hunter be this big defensive presence that can guard 1 through 4 and can make threes and can lead? I mean, the Hawks are going to be great to watch. There's a few question marks there. I think Cam Reddish is a high risk, high reward in that you're wasting a top 10 pick if it doesn't go well. But if it does go well, you have a high talent. I mean, this draft, we're going to look back on it and we're going to say, okay, how did this player fall this fall? It's a really even and flattened out draft in terms of talent after the top 3. So we're going to say, how did this player fall? We're going to say, why was this player drafted so high? I mean, look, if Darius Garland can't manage to, like, play make in any way, we're going to say, how did the next Dion Waiters go at number 5 when they already had a point guard? Or let's say Jarrett Culver, I hope he doesn't. Let's say he doesn't work out. I mean, I want him to work out, but if he doesn't, we're going to say, okay, how did the next Rudy Gay end up here at number 6? There's a lot of question marks, but if we move on to number 11, I can assure you this was a mistake. Without even looking forward, Cameron Johnson could end up being an excellent shooter and could shoot 45% from 3 for all I care. This would still be a horrible mistake. I mean, look at what the Suns did before the draft. Trading away your second or third leading scorer in TJ Warren, an 18-point-per-game scorer who did it efficiently and was hitting his threes for the first time in his career, trading him away and a pick with which you could have taken Cam Johnson to the Pacers for cash considerations is one of the worst moves I have seen this offseason. Without a doubt, it will continue to be one of the worst moves of this offseason for a while, because how do you trade away that player for nothing? TJ Warren is a positive asset. If you're going to clear up the cap space, why trade for Aaron Baines? I have never been more confused as to what the Suns are trying to do, and I am even more confused as to how Devin Booker has not wanted out of this trash organization yet. How do you draft Cam Johnson at number 11? How? Who makes that decision? I mean, James Jones just drafted himself. Cameron Johnson is essentially what James Jones is. He can shoot the ball really well. Can't do anything else. Can he be a leader? Maybe. Who knows? He's also 23 years old. Devin Booker is 22. Devin Booker has been in the league for 4 years. Cam Johnson is now a rookie. Who made this choice? Cameron Johnson was supposed to go at the end of the first round, early in the second round, and he was supposed to be this win-now shooter. I don't know how he can be that for the Suns. Kobe White was happy for him. I'm great job, Kobe White. The reason he was so happy was because Cam Johnson was not supposed to go here. The Suns, I can say without a doubt, lost this trade. They tanked the whole year in an attempt to get John Morant or Zion Williamson, and ended up with, let me count this up: Ty Jerome, Cameron Johnson, and Dario Saric. Who would make that decision? I mean, they're risking their whole franchise's players' happiness. I mean, DeAndre Ayton, he's stuck there for a while. We know that much, but Devin Booker isn't stuck there too much longer. He signed the five-year extension, but I mean, we've seen players request to get traded for way less. I mean, say what you will about the Pelicans not surrounding Anthony Davis with talent. They got him Drew Holiday. They got him DeMarcus Cousins for a bit. They got him Rajon Rondo, who had a bounce-back year. They got him Julius Randle this past year. They built a team of good players. It may not have worked out a lot because of a lot of injury problems, but they got him some talent. The Suns have gotten him no talent. Josh Jackson has been a bust. There's no other way to say that. I think he can be a decent player. He's certainly not going to be better than De'Aaron Fox, Lauri Markkanen, even Jonathan Isaac for the Magic, who was looking suspect at best. There's no way Josh Jackson is going to be better than Jonathan Isaac. Josh Jackson is going to be off of this roster by the end of the year, I'd say. He's going to be out of the league soon if nothing changes. I mean, Dragan Bender, do I have to say anything other than Dragan Bender? Alex Len? Marquise Chris? I mean, they haven't surrounded Devin Booker with anything. The closest they got to a decent player to pair him with before DeAndre Ayton was TJ Warren or Eric Bledsoe. I don't know how the Suns can continue to be confident about keeping their star moving forward. Like, this is not how you build a team. You don't draft a great player and then let him wither away. I'm baffled. I was watching this, and I was watching the draft, and I was like, I mean, this could be Brandon Clark. I think they should trade back for Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They did none of those things. Instead, they said, fuck it, and drafted a guard forward who can shoot and do nothing else. I mean, Mikal Bridges is a better version of that already. You have TJ Warren who could do more. I mean, I'd understand trading back and then taking a point guard, but they did no such thing and apparently think that Dario Saric is the answer to at power forward. I don't think so. I mean, this draft could not have gone worse for the Suns, in my opinion. I think Suns fans should be rioting in the streets. At number 12, we had the Hornets taking PJ Washington, I believe. Very good player. I'm not going to argue otherwise. Like, he was a big riser after the combine. He can be great. The question is, what are the Hornets really going to do? I mean, it's confusing whether the Hornets can keep Kemba Walker, and even if they can, do they want to? Do they just want to rebuild? They probably should have traded Kemba at the trade deadline. They could have gotten some value. I mean, I thought last year they took Shai Gilgeous and traded him to the Clippers. I thought they wanted Shai Gilgeous so that they could, replace Kemba Walker. I thought that made sense. Shai Gilgeous was one of my best point guards in that class. I was excited for him. I liked him more than Colin Sexton for some measure. It's a question to me, because, I mean, I don't know what the Hornets are doing. They had to take a big man, because they're not going to keep filling up the wing depth after taking Malik Monk and Miles Bridges in 2 consecutive drafts. Do we see Devontae Graham start getting some serious minutes? I thought he could be decent, but I certainly didn't think he should be a starting point guard. I don't see what the Hornets are doing. I mean, it's not nearly as bad as a situation as Phoenix, because, the Hornets actually have a star, actually have an all-star, and have actually won a decent amount of games. Like, they were the 9 seed this past year, or the 10 seed. They were the 10 seed, sorry. They can be something. The Suns have not been good in what feels like forever. I'm concerned for the Hornets moving forward. I think they have options. If PJ Washington works out, Jesus Christ, he is going to be great. He is a strong man. He can be a defensive presence if he gets his mind in the right place. His post game needs work. Honestly, every part of his offensive game needs work. But he has all the needed measurables, like fast, strong, jumps well. I mean, I'm not sure how his thought process has always been a bit of a question while playing, but he can certainly be something. At 13, Tyler Hero probably would have been more suited to go to a playoff team and be that off-ball shooter in a JJ Redick type role. I think the Heat are really going to look at him to create his own shot. I also don't know where he slides in. Is he a point guard? And then with the future of the team, is he a point guard? Then Josh Richardson is starting 2. Justice Winslow is the starting 3. I mean, Justice Winslow looked great when he was playing point guard. Do you really want Tyler Hero there when you could have, I don't know, gone with a different option? I think Brandon Clark fit that team very well. Just as, like, the Heat are a defensive, hard-nosed, blue-collar team. And those may all be a lot of cliches, but I don't really know what the Heat are doing with that pick. That's all I can say. I have no clue what the Heat are doing. Because that's a serious issue with now not having any... they certainly added shooting. That's a big thing. They added someone who can shoot the lights out. But I'm worried about whether, here's the question for me. Can the Heat really build a team that's any good just by drafting like this? Because they're kind of just taking undervalued prospects. And so far none of them have been like huge other than Josh Richardson, who was taken with the second round pick. But it's worrisome. It's especially for a team like the Heat that has such championship DNA and has this great history and all of that. But can the Heat really make a big impact on the league by continuing to do this strategy, which is essentially the opposite of what the rest of the league is doing? I mean, with the flattened draft odds, they're in a better situation now. But look, 2021, their pick is going to the Clippers. They have one more year to be a very good team. And then if anything goes poorly from there on, I'm not sure what they'll do. I'll leave it at that for the Heat. I love watching the Heat do well. I'm a huge fan of D Wade's. That's why he's a part of the intro. But with D Wade retiring, they really don't have a perimeter playmaker now. They have Josh Richardson, who was as close as you can get to that. But Josh Richardson, after starting the year off great, had a real not great year afterwards. I'll move on. The Celtics, I know no one was really excited to see the Celtics make 3 first-round picks. But they did. So I guess that's a thing. The Celtics took Romeo Langford. I was a part of, I was a big supporter of a lot of the undervalued prospects here. Not Tyler Hero Kynes, but I really liked Romeo Langford. I really liked Nasir Little. I really liked RJ Barrett. I was really going against NBA Twitter, let's say. Look, I believe that Romeo Langford can be something. I know the shot isn't what it's supposed to be. I know all of that, but he can fucking score. He can fucking go off the dribble. He is aggressive. He is going to drive hard, and he is going to work his ass off. And I think not enough can be said about that player that works hard. And for a Celtics team that really has a horrible culture right now and is probably losing their 2 best players, Romeo Langford was a great pick. I think Terry Rozier is not very good. I think he's a shot chucker that got really hot in last year's playoffs, and that's essentially it. And I don't think many teams are going to offer him a huge amount of money after that kind of year, because let's be honest, he was a horrible player this year. You can't sugarcoat that. He was not good. I could name you a good 50 point guards I'd rather have on my roster than Terry Rozier this past year. And that's a low estimate. But, if you're looking at the new Celtics core, it's Romeo Langford, Carson Edwards. Then do you still include Marcus Smart? Then there's Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Robert Williams. That's a team that can make some noise. You definitely have to depend on Jason Tatum quite a bit. And I expect him to have a big year, as I do for Jaylen Brown. But we're going to need to see Brad Stevens work the magic that he does with low-ego players. And, that could certainly happen. He's done so before. But, does Jason Tatum slide into that role as well as we thought he could now? I don't think he can be a future MVP. I never really thought that. We went from saying we went from saying Jason Tatum is the next Kobe to saying Jason Tatum could be the next Andrew Wiggins. It's not a great situation for the Celtics to be in. They had championship aspirations, and now they're back to rebuilding. I certainly think they can be a decent team, especially with the weakened East. I think they're still a playoff team, and they have assets to rebuild. And I like the Romeo Langford pick. I just think the Celtics suffered from a distinct case of Murphy's Law. Everything that could go wrong went wrong for them. Kyrie Irving came back at the wrong time. Gordon Hayward went out at the wrong time and then came back to a situation where he wasn't going to be allowed to, be fed touches. I think Danny Ainge really needs to do something more than just continue drafting players. The only big move he really made since the Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen trades that brought them to Boston, and then the fleecing of the Nets. I mean, there's the Kyrie Irving move. There's trading back for Jason Tatum, but those aren't really too ballsy. I mean, he hasn't put his chips into the center of the table. We keep singing all these praises of Danny Ainge, and yet he hasn't done what we expect a great GM like that to do. Masai Ujiri put it all on the table, and he got shit done. He won a championship. Danny Ainge needs to do something like that. Since we have 5 minutes left, I'll go on to some sleeper picks. Brandon Clark for the Grizzlies, I think, is a great pickup. Although he may be a bit too old to be part of a rebuilding team, it's a great option to have there. I mean, I could talk about Goga Bitadze. I think he's going to have a great career. I was talking about how he's a stronger, better Dario Saric. People are going to talk about Bol. I loved being there to see him be applauded by the whole Barclays Center that was still there, myself included. At that point, it was like 11:30, and everyone kind of wanted to get out of there, but we were all so happy to see Bol just be able to be drafted. I think Denver is a very good place for him to end up. I'm not sure how he can play. I'm wondering whether he can play the power forward position next to Jokic. I would have liked him more in Sacramento. I thought that was a great fit for him. They had the 43rd or 42nd pick and would have had the option to take him just before then. Other sleepers. Talen Horton-Tucker could be good. It really depends. I mean, he's going to have a big role for the Lakers, especially with how little talent they have. Because, I mean, they really just have 3 real players on their team. And then I like Jalen Noel. I think I can 100% say that he is going to be an NBA player, if that makes sense. He's going to be on a roster for a while. And then you look around the rest of the pick. I like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He's going to fit in well with the Pelicans to be a backup. Along with Frank Mason is a very good option there. If we look later on, Matisse Thybulle, he really needs to work on the shot, but he is an excellent defensive player. I had him as the 3rd or 4th best defender behind Zion Williamson, Brandon Clark. It's gonna depend on whether the Sixers actually clear up space for him to play. I mean, if Jimmy Butler comes back, Matisse Thybulle is not going to play much. Let's be honest. I think Sekou Doumbouya is potentially the biggest steal of the draft. He could be what Frank Ntilikina was supposed to be before, like either an all-star that was taken way too late, or he could be out of the league within 4 years. I don't think there's very much in between. He's one of those players to me. I mean, I'm excited to watch him because I think he fits very well with Detroit. I think Detroit needs that extra player to actually be not conference championship contender, but to be a real respectable team. And I think Sekou is part of that. He's going to take a lot of time. He is the epitome of a project player. He's going to take time, but he could be what Giannis was in his own draft class, which is buy low and then don't sell because you have such a great asset. Those players could all be steals. I mean, the craziest thing about this draft was how names that didn't really make sense were flying off the boards. Like, it was the talent gap was so thin to most teams that if you liked a player, you just grabbed him. I mean, there wasn't much thought to it. It was, why would we trade back? No one wants to trade up if they think they can get their player anyway. And if they don't, they think they can get someone of equal value. So it was fun to watch. This year's draft was awesome. I'm going to leave it there. Please follow the BSPN Insta at BSPN Radio. We post there quite often. We'll have a show about free agency and about the NBA award show, which I probably should have discussed a little here. Of course, I think all the awards were deserved. I think Rudy Gobert was kind of didn't deserve Defensive Player of the Year. I think it deserved to go to Giannis. We'll talk about that later. Free agency is looking to be super interesting this year, even if not much happens because the whole league is open. And, I mean, we're going to see some new title contenders this year. And I assure you, we're going to see a new finals. The only team I think could repeat, I mean, obviously the only team that could repeat is the Raptors, but we'll talk about that later. Thanks for listening. Follow the Insta, follow the YouTube, and bye.